Let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're unlocking AI video prompt mastery, the director's chair. It is officially time we stop treating AI video prompts like some kind of magic incantation and actually start designing true motion. Look, if you've been using AI video tools for a while, you've definitely noticed a deeply frustrating pattern, right? One minute you generate an absolute cinematic masterpiece, and the very next, you get this shape-shifting mess. Your main character suddenly sprouts an extra limb, a sleek sports car morphs into what looks like melted plastic, or the background just entirely dissolves into a chaotic blur. Now, you might think you just haven't found that secret, perfect combination of poetic adjectives, but it actually comes down to how effectively you're communicating with a machine that is, quite honestly, constantly and desperately guessing. If your prompt is vague, the model gets total freedom to fill in the blanks, and in the world of AI video generation, total freedom almost always equals total chaos. The real secret to repeatability isn't adding a dozen more descriptive words to your prompt. It's establishing clear constraints. You aren't just setting a scene. You are giving a motion system a rigid set of guardrails that drastically reduces the model's freedom to make those chaotic choices. A strong prompt works simply because it reduces uncertainty. Think about it like giving instructions to a human dancer. If you just tell them to dance beautifully, well, you're completely at the mercy of their wild interpretation. They could do literally anything. But if you say, slow turn, step forward, pause under the spotlight, you've just created a highly usable, repeatable motion path that you actually control. To pull off that exact level of control, you need a highly specific set of tools. Think of your prompt kind of like packing for a trip. You don't need a whole paragraph of random wishes. You really just need 6 essential pieces to make sure your scene actually works. First up is the subject. That's your anchor. Next, the action, which dictates what actually changes in the scene. Third is the camera, controlling our specific perspective. Fourth, the motion path, mapping out the timing and flow. Fifth is the style signal, providing the overarching mood. And finally, constraints, which keep the model strictly on task. When even one of these essentials is missing, the whole structure tends to collapse. If you don't have a clear subject, the scene just drifts into a generic blur because the AI has nothing to lock its focus onto. No action? Well, then the video feels completely dead, basically like a photograph that just happens to be saved as an MP4. And if you're missing a motion path, the movement usually feels frantic and totally uncoordinated. Once you understand the highly specific job of each of these 6 components, your prompts stop feeling so unpredictable. They start feeling architectural. You're no longer just crossing your fingers and wishing for a good generation. You're actively building a robust control structure. Let's really zero in on that last component for a second, because it is almost always the most overlooked. Constraints. Constraints act exactly like masking tape on a canvas. They absolutely do not remove your creativity. They contain it, so your scene doesn't bleed out into background chaos. This means you need to explicitly state what should not happen. Tell the AI point blank. Camera locked on tripod, no background movement, no extra characters. Those are your strips of masking tape. They form the solid bowl that keeps all your brilliant creative ingredients from spilling out over the counter. Okay, so once you have those core pieces locked in, you have to address the single biggest difference between generating images and generating video. A still image can totally survive on its aesthetic alone. But the second time enters the equation, you need action. Motion isn't just an extra detail, it is the absolute spine of the video. Think of a vintage wind-up toy. The toy itself, its paint, its shape, that's your subject. But the spring releasing tension inside, that's the action. Without that release of energy over time, absolutely nothing happens, no matter how cool the toy looks. And because this motion unfolds over time, building a video prompt is a lot more like designing a river than painting a canvas. If you just type the words, a river, the model just throws water everywhere. It floods the banks, creating a messy, shapeless puddle. But if you carve out a specific motion path, saying the river starts out completely still, picks up rapid speed, and then sharply curves left around some jagged rocks, suddenly it has a beautifully controlled flow. You are carving the riverbed. You are giving the system a highly specific, intentional motion story to tell. Now, to build that controlled flow without totally confusing the AI, you have to organize your motion into 3 distinct layers. First, you have subject motion, like a woman turning her head toward a window. That's your primary anchor. Then you have camera motion, which dictates exactly how the viewer's viewpoint shifts around that anchor. And finally, environmental motion, like heavy rain streaking rapidly across the glass. Think of environmental motion exactly like background musicians. They are there to elegantly support the main melody, definitely not to aggressively compete with it for the spotlight. Let's look at how this builds specifically with the camera layer. The camera isn't just floating around randomly in space, it dictates exactly what the viewer should care about next. A slow push-in isn't just some technical maneuver, it acts like front row seating at a concert. It creates this profound feeling of intimacy, deep focus, and emotional emphasis. Every single camera move you dictate, whether it's a completely static shot designed for maximum stability or a dramatic pullback designed for a vast reveal, it carries immense emotional weight that changes how we actually feel watching it. But here is where most people completely ruin their shots. If you make the subject, the camera, and the background all aggressively compete for attention at the exact same time, you get total motion conflict. Imagine asking a dancer to spin rapidly while the camera violently pulls back, while the background flashes rapidly from day to night. The AI model simply panics. It just tears the image apart trying to do everything at once. That's why a coordinated hierarchy of motion is so incredibly essential. The best motion prompts aren't maximal, they are coordinated. Which brings us to the absolutely vital difference between motion detail and motion logic. Piling on phrases like shaky cam, 4K, extreme zooming, hyperlapse, sure, that gives the prompt a ton of motion detail, but it entirely lacks logic. The model doesn't know why anything is moving, so it just shakes the frame blindly. On the flip side, if you simply prompt a slow camera push-in while a subject turns their head to look at the falling rain, you've created a deliberate relationship. The viewer's attention naturally narrows exactly as the subject's attention shifts. That is pure motion logic. Let's apply this directly to a real-world scenario, like a high-end product shot. A weak prompt just asks for a luxury watch on a wooden table, cinematic and realistic. Honestly, it just describes a dead object. It gives the AI an appearance, but absolutely no path forward in time. A strong prompt, however, introduces elegant time-based change. You tell it, soft light moves across its metal surface, a slight reflection shifts, paired with a slow camera push-in. You really do not need dramatic Michael Bay-style explosions to make a good video. You just need believable, highly controlled progression. Section 4, Turning Skill into Creative Fluency. By truly internalizing everything we've covered today, you are fundamentally changing your relationship with these AI tools. You realize that a prompt is way less like a descriptive paragraph and much more like a precise choreography plan. You're shifting your entire mindset from someone just guessing magic words and hoping for the best to a director actively guiding human attention over time. You aren't memorizing prompt formulas anymore. You are speaking the language of motion. You know exactly how to anchor your subject, map your camera, layer your environment, and lock it all down with constraints. So the only real question left for you is this: how will you use this architectural control system to make your next creation not just a random generation, but something completely deliberate?